Hello everyone, I'm Thisuru here. I'm a former debater of Ananda College and I'm currently the head coach of Gateway College Kandy. So I'm doing this motion debrief as part of the DC's initiative to discuss the motions that were done at the DS Impromptus debating tournament. The motion I'll be handling is in times of economic crisis, this house believes that government should withhold information that is likely to damage market confidence. So I'll be running you through the characterizations of both the op and prop cases and the arguments within and what sort of analysis you should ideally try to have within the arguments. Okay, so going directly into the prop case. I think when you're setting up this debate, there are two things you need to do. One, you need to properly expound on what the problem is. So in here, you are preventing the government from giving out information, accurate information, because that accurate information is going to end up damaging market confidence. So in the characterization itself, you need to show why market confidence is something that is extremely important. And important in the sense not just to individuals or to an abstract government or an entity, but rather society itself, and how having that market confidence allows society to function, right? Because every single thing from your daily interactions and your daily life, all of those things are based on your country or your society having a stable economy, and market confidence is the foundation of that. So when you're setting up the debate as prop, I think that is one of the main things that you need to do, because you need to show that this is such an important thing that the moment market confidence is damaged, especially during an economic crisis, that there's no coming back from it, and that you should try to set up in your characterization itself. Then the second thing you can do is set up the model, right? So in this motion, obviously you are not giving out the information. That goes without saying. That is the larger push behind the model. But also you can incorporate a couple of more things. For example, you can say that, look, it's not going to be a vacuum of no information whatsoever, but you are going to give out information that will increase market confidence, that would maintain market confidence at the same time. You can say that you will be implementing other measures that are designed to take care of the economic crisis that's happening right now, for example, like disposal of non-performing debts or something like that. So while this is going on, you also have these other initiatives that are happening, so you can cover up and basically cover all your bases. Yeah, so I think those things are enough for your characterization for now. You can of course incorporate even more things if you want to, but ideally you should try to limit the characterization to the most important things within the debate, and then try to incorporate whatever else you have within your arguments. Okay, so now going to your arguments. Obviously, you should split this into the principal justification and then the practical applications of this motion, and how it's going to necessarily be an effective mechanism to combat whatever you're trying to combat, right? So, okay, with principal justification generally goes as the first argument. So, in that, the first thing you can do is you can draw parallels to whatever is happening, to whatever has happened outside of this, right? For example, take other instances where you limit information that is given out by the government for the benefit of society at large. The most obvious one being during national security crisis, right? So for national security reasons, you can control the flow of information and say that, look, the general public gets these pieces of information. They don't get these things, because if they get these things, they might be paranoid, they might behave in certain ways that are going to be problematic to everybody. So when that extension is when that parallel is made, you already clear some of the burden that you have to say that, look, this is not something that is very outlandish that we are trying to do, but something that is already being done and is not like a very drastic measure. Okay, then the second thing is, you can say, of course, the government has the right to determine what essentially what the government has the right to do this, right? So the analysis being, the government has been elected, they've been elected to push a certain political agenda, and they are supposed to push policies, and in this case they are justified in pushing this because you are doing this for the betterment of everybody in general. So you can, and then you need to make the push that it is impossible for the government to predict what is going to happen if individuals have all the information, because we've already drawn these links within the characterization to say that look, individuals are not rational, they don't act rationally, especially during like crisis times, because fear becomes the ruling factor. You always want to put yourself first and take care of yourself first, and you generally don't tend to think in the long term during time periods like that. So it's a collective action problem, not an individual issue, and that's why you want to make sure that the people don't go into that state of paranoia beforehand. So now if you limit the information that these individuals will have, you can keep a lid on what is happening, and you can make sure that they take predictable actions, right? Which means that you know what is going to happen, you know how to deal with all the things that are going on as the government. And then finally you tie this argument up by saying, look, this is why we prioritize this over individual freedoms. So obviously individuals have right to information and all those rights, those are fine, but we are prioritizing this over those rights because right now it's essential or it's imperative that these people don't get this information, because if they get that information, their actions are going to end up damaging the rights of everybody in the long term, and that is something that is detrimental, and that's something we don't want people to do. And then you tie up the principal justification with that. So then you go into the argument on the practical aspect of this. So obviously first thing you need to do is show why this is effective, right? And that is what your argument should ideally be tailored to do. Now when you're doing practical based arguments, or rather practical arguments, you should have a comparative, right? To say that look, these are the benefits that we get if we do this, and if we don't do this, this is what will happen. So it's not just you giving out a list of benefits, but you are saying that look, the comparative is a bunch of harms, and then you contrast it for the judge so that it's that much more easier for them to buy. Okay, this is absolutely something that we need to do. Okay, so then after the comparative, you have to give a mechanism, right? Obviously, like this is exactly how it's going to work out. It needs to make sense. You can't just say like, look, A leads to B. When we do this, it will automatically make the economy better. You need to have like a chain of logical links that shows why A actually leads to B. So, and then final thing, I would say the most important thing is impacting, right? You need to show that these impacts are going to be real and that they are going to affect individuals throughout society. So basically large scale impacts, right? Ideally large scale in the sense that it affects a lot of people, in important ways, and not like minute things or only to a few individuals that can be shrugged off, right? Okay, so in this argument, how do you do that? So for the comparative, there are two things you can do, right? One, you can talk about individual behaviors. So when people don't have market confidence, they tend to panic, and when they panic, it makes it that much harder for you to sort of rejuvenate the economy. Why? People withdraw money. People think, okay, look, we need to protect ourselves, we need to take our money. They go to the banks, they start withdrawing. You withdraw more than 30% of the money in a bank, that's enough for the bank to collapse. And then you set things off in motion, right? So you stop people from investing in the stock market and all of those things. And those are not necessarily good things, especially during times of economic crisis. And it's going to lead to like sort of chain reaction, and all the companies that are currently having a very hard time, all the corporations, they're definitely going to collapse in this situation because it's already unsustainable. So that is one way in which individuals are going to impact the economy negatively if they are not stopped from doing that. Second comparative you can draw is to say that, look, if people are behaving unpredictably, then it is that much more difficult for the government to intervene and say that, okay, look, this is how we deal with. Okay, so the government generally deals with economic crisis in various different ways, right? They implement policies, they have central bank interfere, they have like bail-ins, bailouts, all sorts of things, right? So it becomes that much more harder for the government to implement these measures because they don't know how people will react. When they know exactly how people are going to react, when they are predictable because they are stable, they know exactly what they need to do in order to fix the situation that is going on right now. So the other link of analysis you draw there is to say that, look, the government is the only individual that has an incentive to intervene, but also the capacity to effectively intervene in order to end the economic crisis. So now into these arguments, you can incorporate like a bunch of preemptives, right? Like the most obvious one is going to be whenever in a motion regarding the government taking like sort of a drastic action, it's like corruption, mismanagement, whereas the transparency and all of those things, right? So maybe you can have something in the characterization itself, or even within this, to say, even within this argument, to say that, look, the governments have an incentive to make sure that things calm down, because and the economy actually gets back online, because they want to be elected again, this affects them and all sorts of things, right? You can draw all these levels of analysis to puff up the argument a bit more, but also to preempt whatever opposition might say. Okay, so now that you're done with the comparatives, you go into your impact. You go into the mechanisms. Okay, so here you need to lay out exactly how the policies that you are implementing alongside the controlled flow of information is going to result in people investing more, people are going to spend more, people are not going to withdraw all their money, the banks are going to remain stable, they are more likely to do these things, but at the same time the other measures you are implementing are going to be more effective, for example like lowering interest rates and whatnot, and how those things are going to have a larger impact over time, and a quicker impact as well, I would say. So then obviously the impacts you can draw to pretty much all the individuals living in society, to say that, okay, their lives are going to be better off in these ways when you don't have an economic crisis going on. So when you stop the drastic like fall in market confidence, people begin to trust in the government, right? So no, people anyway trust the government. It's literally like a manifestation of public trust. Basically they vote you because they trust you, they want you there to implement like a certain bunch of policies. So it's not like the larger population is automatically distrustful of everything you say. So in this case you can say that it's likely that these people will believe, because obviously there's going to be a push from opposition to say, okay, the information is going to get out and this is going to like damage the government standing and all of that. You can say, I would say not to say it definitely won't get out, but to weigh things out so it looks very much more like it won't get out, and even if it does, it's not going to be believed that much, right? So that part you can incorporate into your arguments wherever you think is suitable. So then those are like the two primary arguments you are going to have on proposition. So always try to have the principled justification to say that when you're implementing a policy, this is why we believe we are right to do this. And then secondly, why you think it's a good thing in terms of like the practical application. Okay, so let's go into the op case now. So here, like I mentioned in prop, there's like a couple of obvious things that you need to bring, right? One is that the government cannot be trusted to like properly manage this information. There's like lots of individuals who are going to look after their own interests, corrupt individuals, blah blah blah, all these analysis you can make. Then the second thing is that you can say that the information will get out. I'll analyze this a bit more in the arguments itself. Okay, so now for setup in op, right? So you are going to say what you are going to do as opposition. You are going to release the important information regarding the economic downfall, whether it damages the market confidence or not. Then second thing is, while you are doing that, you can have the other mechanism, same thing that I mentioned for prop. you can say that you will implement all these other measures that are designed at taking down the rather stopping the economic crisis. So same breakdown in arguments, you have the principal justification and then the practical application of the policy that you're running and how it's going to be comparatively a better off situation than what proposition is portraying. So when it comes to the principle, you say, look, these individuals are rational individuals. You as a government have a responsibility to treat them as rational individuals, right? You need to afford them the dignity that is due to them as citizens or because of the mandate they've given you and so on and so forth, right? So the idea is that you allow these individuals to make rational decisions, that you have a principled obligation to do that. So when you're done analyzing that argument, you can say why it's important for people to have information. So this is basically a right to information argument to say why it's important for the why people have a right to know, but also why it's important for people to know. So in the sense of like why it's important to know, I think you can add a bit of mechanization here, right? So for example, if people don't have the information, they are more likely to make decisions that are detrimental to them. So in this situation, it would look something like this, right? When you should be saving up money, because right now the economy is on the brink of like going into a dive, you instead spend the money going on a vacation. So things like that, those are decisions that are going to be extremely detrimental to these individuals, right? You think the market is good, you think you can find other jobs, you think employment opportunities are there, you quit your job and start looking for other jobs. Extremely detrimental things, right? And you make these decisions, why? Because you don't have that crucial information that you would otherwise have had. And now remember, it's important to mention that this kind of information is going to impact people's daily lives, right? This is not like some sort of abstract data that only statisticians and people in like the corporate sector are going to know and use in their daily life. This is just like basic things that every single person out there needs to know. So then for the practical applications, right? Obviously you can talk about like how this doesn't solve the crux of the problem, right? Especially when it comes to like governance, politicians themselves are more inclined towards putting in short-term policies, policies that have short-term impacts because it helps them, right? So they fix things in the short term. People think, okay, these are good people, they are giving us a good life. They vote them back in, give them more power. That is exactly what these people are going to do, and that is why it's wrong, right? And that is why it's extremely important that people have information in order to counterbalance that, so that they know, okay, these people are have messed up, and so that you can hold them accountable at a different time. Then when it comes to impacting, you can talk about how this doesn't address like the structural issues that actually cause the economic downturn, right? So you are already in a crisis, mind you. It's not like you are going into a crisis. So what are the steps that are being taken to manage this crisis? And how are you going to know that the steps that are being taken are effective? Because right now the metrics are going to be a bit skewed because people don't know what is going on behind the scenes, right? So it's more of a control experiment rather than having like this take place naturally. And the thing is, in that situation, you will have to withhold information without any time limitation, because that is how things are going to go, right? Then you can talk about how the information is actually going to get out. Why? Because we live in internet age, everybody has access to these things. There's going to be a bunch of people who see the profits that they're making, bunch of people who are going to see that, look, we all lost our jobs in this sector, so on and so forth, right? And then and even if one of them goes and posts about it on something, it can basically go viral or something of the sort. It will gain traction. There will be rumors. Even if it is only rumors, it's still enough to damage like the market confidence that people are going to have, because you can say that people are naturally mistrustful of the government due to like, you know, all these big brother sort of scenarios that are going on, and the government, people in general having like a more cynical view of governments in the current times. So what happens when you lose market confidence is people don't know what is accurate information, so that they are more likely to act out even more, right? So even if the situation does not demand it of them, they will definitely go into the extreme, because right now they have no information, so they are going to bet on the safe side, right? They always want to basically take precautions and make sure that they cover all their bases. The other thing is, there's going to be a bunch of people who invest expecting profits, and then they are not going to be left with any profits, right? Even if the information doesn't get out, these sort of people are going to have their market confidence damaged, and that is also going to be something that is extremely detrimental in the future, right? So in the long term, you're not only uh, not fixing like the structural issues within the economy, but also you are preventing these individuals who would be willing to invest if the economy was fine and they knew that they would get their return, from investing in the future even when the economy is fine, because of the policies that you are implementing right now. So those are some of the areas you can explore in this debate. I think when it comes to clashes, obviously the two principles are going to clash about like, is a person's right to information more important than their uh, right to basically be safe, I would say. It's not in the sense that if individuals are going to be their personal security is going to be affected, but rather like the economy is going to be affected negatively, and that in turn is going to lead to like a lot of other disastrous consequences, which are inherently going to be bad for people. And if you really need to make all the analysis, you can go to the extent of saying that, look, when the economy goes bad, everything else in the country goes south as well. But yeah, so that's something you could do if you need to. So within that clash, I think it's a matter of who shows that uh, which side shows which rights are more important. Then the second one, obviously, impacting is, I think, going to be the bigger issue when it comes to saying the practical applications are going to be better. So yes, on one side you are going to have the opposition saying, okay, look, or the proposition rather saying, when people don't have this information, they are not going to act like in irrationally or rationally and withdraw their money, because they don't know what's going on, so they don't want to protect themselves. They will let the status quo be, and then opposition will argue, okay, look, that's bad, people should be allowed to do what they want, and also the status quo isn't necessarily going to solve anything of the sort, and so on and so forth, right? So those clashes are going to you're going to necessarily go back and forth and on that, and who makes the better impacts is going to take that clash, because ultimately people are the ones who are going to be affected in either case. And one side is going to be harping on the short-term benefits, on like why it's important to protect these individuals, and the other side is going to talk about how long in the long term it's going to be bad, and these individuals need to have the self-determination to choose what's best for themselves. So I think that's like a basic summary of this motion. I hope that was useful.